A villain can terrorize an entire galaxy, destroy planets, and seem practically unbeatable for decades. But sometimes his death takes only 3 seconds. One shot, one lightsaber strike, one surprisingly unstable floor, and suddenly the career of the most feared being in the galaxy ends with about as much dignity as a stormtrooper walking into a door. Today we're ranking the deaths of Star Wars' greatest villains, from embarrassing to legendary. And it's not just about how spectacular someone dies. What matters is whether the death fits the character's personality, their story, and their meaning. A huge fight can be narratively empty, and a duel that barely lasts 3 seconds can end an entire life story. And to be clear, we're sticking to film and series canon. Palpatine even gets 2 chances. His original death in Episode 6 and his final defeat in Episode 9 are judged separately, which is probably more chances than any man should get after already being thrown into an exploding Death Star. Let's start at the very bottom. Tier 1, embarrassing, number 13, General Hux. General Hux starts out as a fanatical military leader, standing before a massive army and announcing the destruction of multiple planets. He's ambitious, dangerous, and completely convinced the galaxy will soon kneel before him. 3 films later, he's shot by General Pride after admitting he's the spy inside the First Order. Not because he suddenly loves freedom, not because he realized the First Order is evil, but because he hates Kylo Ren, which honestly isn't a bad idea at all. Hux doesn't betray his ideology, he betrays his rival. His ego is bigger than his loyalty. The problem is the execution. Hux confesses his role, gets exposed moments later. Pride draws his blaster and shoots him almost casually. No final confrontation with Kylo, no desperate scheme, no consequences for the First Order. The man who commanded Starkiller Base ends like an employee whose keycard got deactivated on the way out of the office. Does the humiliation fit Hux? Sure. But his death doesn't close a story arc, it just disposes of him. That's why General Hux lands in last place. Number 12, Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma looks like the most dangerous person in the entire First Order. Chrome armor, black cape, Gwendolyn Christie. Everything about her screams, this woman is going to matter. Then she spends the first film being Finn's superior officer, lowers Starkiller Base's shields under threat, and gets unceremoniously thrown down a garbage chute. In The Last Jedi, she gets her second chance. Phasma fights Finn, dominates him at first, and nearly knocks him into the abyss. But Finn hits her armor. The floor beneath Phasma collapses, and she falls into the burning wreck of the Supremacy. Visually, it's strong. For the first time, we see part of her face. For a brief moment, the shiny facade falls away, and underneath there's no superhuman monster, just a frightened person. Finn's victory has meaning too. The former stormtrooper defeats the woman who once controlled him. Still, the death feels smaller than the character had promised. Phasma barely got time to build a personal relationship with Finn. She was more design than character, an extremely cool action figure prototype with the occasional line of dialogue. Her ending is better than Hux's. But when the most interesting thing about a character is her armor, maybe the floor shouldn't be her greatest opponent. Tier 2, meaningless. Number 11, Palpatine, Episode 9. Palpatine is back. How? Dark secrets, cloning, Sith magic, and apparently the galactic version of we'll explain later. On Exegol, it turns out the Emperor really did cheat death. His body is destroyed, but his spirit lives on. He manipulated the First Order, created Snoke, and waited for Rey. Eventually, he drains the energy of Rey, and Ben's Force Dyad regenerates his body and unleashes a storm of Force lightning that threatens an entire fleet. The problem: Palpatine is once again using Force lightning against someone who can redirect it right back at him. Rey raises 2 lightsabers. The voices of the past Jedi strengthen her. Palpatine's own energy is turned back on him until his body disintegrates. Spectacular? Absolutely. Perfect for his personality? Partly. Palpatine dies from his own boundless arrogance. He can't stop because he believes he is the embodiment of all the Sith. Retreat is never an option for him, but narratively, this death damages his far better downfall in Episode 6. Vader's sacrifice had defeated the Emperor, ended the Sith, and fulfilled Anakin's prophecy. Then Palpatine came back, only to die once more by reflected lightning. That's why he doesn't get a higher spot. Not because the scene is small, but because it repeats a legendary ending without surpassing it. And that brings us to an important distinction. A villain can explode enormously and still die meaninglessly. Number 10, Newt Gunray. Newt Gunray spends more than a decade making himself available for every visibly shady deal there is. He blockades Naboo, backs the Separatists, repeatedly tries to have Padme assassinated, and works for Darth Sidious, a man whose voice alone sounds like every contract ends with a beheading. At the end of the Clone Wars, Gunray hides with the Separatist Council on Mustafar. Sidious promises them peace and sends Darth Vader. Gunray only grasps the truth once Anakin is already standing in the room. Lord Sidious promised us peace, and Vader responds with essentially the most aggressive contract termination in the galaxy. Gunray is killed along with the rest of the Separatist leaders. The scene isn't long. We see no great fight because there can't be one. These people were never partners of the Sith Lord. They were tools, and Palpatine clears away his tools the moment he no longer needs them. For Gunray personally, the death is almost meaningless, but for the story, it serves an important function. The Clone Wars don't end with a peace treaty, but with the elimination of every witness. So Gunray's death is unspectacular but fitting. He spent his life serving more powerful people in order to become more powerful himself. In the end, he discovered he never had a future in Palpatine's plan. Tier 3, self-inflicted. Number 9. Supreme Leader Snoke. Snoke sits on his throne and believes he sees everything. He sees Kylo's thoughts, he senses his intent, he notices the lightsaber turning. He just doesn't notice it's the wrong lightsaber. While Snoke tortures Rey, Kylo uses the Force to turn Anakin's lightsaber. Lying beside the throne, Snoke enthusiastically narrates how his apprentice will strike down his true enemy. Then Kylo ignites the blade. Snoke is cut in half. The death is fast, surprising, and nearly perfect for Snoke's personality. His greatest strength, the belief that he completely controls Kylo's mind, becomes his weakness. He's so busy commenting on his own superiority that he practically live narrates his own death. So why only 9th place? Because the later reveal that Snoke was created and controlled by Palpatine strips away part of his significance. The mysterious new Supreme Leader becomes, in retrospect, a very elaborately produced Sith tool. As a movie scene, his death works brilliantly. As the conclusion to a character in his own right, far less so, but now we leave the category of wasted potential. The villains ahead don't just die, they leave a mark. Tier 4, brutal. Number 8, Jango Fett. Jango Fett is considered the best bounty hunter of his time. He provides the genetic template for an entire army, escapes Obi-Wan Kenobi, and walks into the Geonosis arena with the confidence of a man who takes his own resume very seriously. Then he faces Mace Windu. Jango fires. Mace blocks the shots, closes in, and beheads him with a single stroke. The fight is short, brutal, and final. What makes the scene especially powerful is Boba. Jango's son is left alone in the arena and later picks up his father's helmet. In that instant, the death creates the Boba Fett we come to know later. A boy whose entire future is changed by a single lightsaber stroke. Jango himself gets no emotional closure, but that fits his life. He was a professional who constantly believed he could control every situation. On Geonosis, he bets on the wrong opponent exactly once. And against Mace Windu, there is no second round of negotiation. Number 7, General Grievous. General Grievous collects the lightsabers of slain Jedi like trophies. He was rebuilt into a war machine, has 4 arms, and was personally trained to hunt Jedi. Naturally, he dies by blaster. After a long duel on Utapau, Grievous loses his lightsabers, several hands, and nearly every chance to escape. Still, he drives Obi-Wan to the edge of a platform. Kenobi pulls Grievous's blaster to himself with the Force and fires repeatedly into his exposed chest. The organic remains inside his body ignite, flames burst from his eyes, and the great Jedi Hunter burns from within. It's one of the most brutal deaths in the films, and the irony makes it better. Grievous, who sets himself above the Jedi and their weapons, isn't defeated in a noble duel. Obi-Wan shoots him. Afterward, Kenobi looks at the blaster and remarks dryly, "So uncivilized." Grievous dies by exactly the kind of ordinary weapon he considered beneath him. Not legendary, but wonderfully disrespectful. Tier 5, deserved. Number 6, Count Dooku. Dooku's death begins as a victory. He beats Obi-Wan, provokes Anakin, and believes he's part of a larger plan. Even as Anakin cuts off both his hands, Dooku probably still expects Palpatine to step in. Then he hears the words, "Kill him." More happens in Dooku's face than in some entire Star Wars dialogues. He understands. The war he waged was never his war. The Separatists were never meant to win. And he himself was never Palpatine's partner. He was Anakin's placeholder. Anakin hesitates, but Palpatine urges him on. Finally, he crosses the 2 lightsabers and beheads Dooku. The death is brutal, but its real power lies in Dooku's realization. The man who thought he could manipulate everyone else understands in his final seconds that he himself was manipulated. At the same time, his execution is a crucial step on Anakin's path to becoming Darth Vader. Palpatine gets Anakin to kill a defenseless prisoner and watches closely to see how far he's already willing to go. So Dooku's death doesn't just end his own story, it opens the final phase of Anakin's fall. Number 5, Jabba the Hutt. Jabba controls people through fear, money, and chains. He keeps Han as a trophy, he forces Leia to his side, and he plans to have Luke and his friends slowly digested by the Sarlacc. Jabba has just one problem. He sees his prisoners as property, not as people. As Luke's rescue mission descends into chaos, Leia takes the very chain Jabba meant to humiliate her with, wraps it around his neck, and strangles him. This is no random way to die. It's poetic retribution. Jabba dies by the symbol of his own control. He's physically powerful, politically well protected, and nearly untouchable in his palace, but the moment his servants are distracted, he has nothing left. No loyalty, no combat skill, no real power. Just a chain around his neck and the realization that Leia was never his property. This death isn't tragic. It isn't meant to be. It's deserved. And the final 4 spots now prove that a villain's death can do more than simply remove a threat. It can redefine the entire character. Tier 6, tragic. Number 4, Kylo Ren. Technically, Kylo Ren doesn't die. Ben Solo dies after Rey wounds him on Kefper with his own lightsaber and then heals him. Kylo is confronted with everything he suppressed. Leia's love, Han's memory, and the fact that murdering his father never made him stronger. He throws his red lightsaber into the sea and becomes Ben Solo again. On Exegol, Ben fights alongside Rey against Palpatine. After Rey defeats the Emperor, she collapses dead. Ben holds her in his arms and transfers all of his life energy into her. Rey awakens. Ben smiles for the first time without hatred, fear, or mask. Then he dies and becomes one with the Force. The death completes his path back to the light. Ben finishes what his grandfather also did in the end. He gives his life to save someone he loves. But that's exactly where the weakness lies. His sacrifice resembles Vader's ending so closely that Ben barely gets time to develop an identity of his own. After his redemption, the kiss with Rey heightens the emotion, but for some viewers it feels more like a surprise last-minute item on the agenda. It's moving, it's tragic, but it also feels like Ben Solo just came back only to be written out of the script again immediately. Number 3. Darth Maul. Maul spends his entire life consumed by hatred. Obi-Wan took his legs, his standing as a Sith, and, at least in Maul's eyes, his entire destiny. Decades later, Maul finds him on Tatooine. What follows is no long duel, no 10-minute choreography, no leaping across platforms, just two old men beneath the moons of Tatooine. Maul realizes Obi-Wan is protecting someone. In doing so, he indirectly threatens Luke, and Obi-Wan decides to end the conflict for good. Maul attacks. Obi-Wan blocks 2 strikes and lands a single fatal blow. The fight lasts only seconds, but those seconds hold their entire shared history. It can even be read as Maul attempting a variation of the same move he used to kill Qui-Gon decades earlier. Obi-Wan knows it. He learned from the past. Maul didn't. Obi-Wan catches him as he collapses. In his final moments, Maul asks whether the boy Obi-Wan is protecting is the chosen one. Obi-Wan confirms it, and Maul answers, "He will avenge us." Even in death, Maul can't let go of his hatred, but for the first time he recognizes that he and Obi-Wan were, in different ways, victims of the same man. He doesn't die as a Sith Lord, not as the ruler of Mandalore, not even truly as Obi-Wan's enemy. He dies as a broken man in the arms of the one person who can fully understand his pain. Tier 7 Legendary. Number 2, Palpatine, Episode 6. Palpatine's original death is the exact opposite of his ending on Exegol. No fleet, no voices of all the Jedi, no 2 lightsabers, just Luke, Vader, and a choice. Palpatine believes he has won. Luke refuses to kill Vader and join the dark side, so the Emperor tortures him with Force lightning. Vader stands beside them. Luke cries out for his father. Vader looks back and forth between his son and his master. Then he lifts Palpatine up and throws him into the reactor shaft. The Emperor dies because there's one thing he cannot understand: compassion. He could manipulate fear, anger, and ambition, but Luke's willingness to die rather than give up on his father lies outside Palpatine's worldview. His greatest mistake isn't turning his back on Vader. His mistake is believing Anakin Skywalker is completely dead. The man who calculated everyone for decades misses the one thought he would never feel himself: a father's love for his son. This death ends the reign of the Empire, fulfills Anakin's redemption, and rewards Luke's choice to win without violence. At least it did, until Episode 9 pulled Palpatine back out of the galactic basement. But even that later return can't fully strip the original scene of its power. Number 1, Darth Vader. Vader gets no massive final battle. He defeats no army. He gives no grand speech. And he doesn't die with his lightsaber in hand. After throwing Palpatine into the shaft, his body gives out. The Force lightning destroyed his life-supporting armor. Luke tries to get him to a shuttle, but Vader knows he's going to die. He asks Luke to take off his mask. Luke warns him that he'll die if he does. But Vader answers, "Nothing can stop that now." For the first time, father and son truly look at each other. Not Darth Vader and The Last Jedi. Anakin Skywalker and Luke. Vader tells his son that Luke was right. There was still good in him. Then he asks Luke to tell Leia exactly that. Then Anakin dies peacefully. This death takes first place because it completes everything Star Wars is about at its core. Anakin fell to the dark side because he wanted to prevent the death of the people he loved. Decades later, he accepts his own death to save his son. He began as a slave, became a Jedi, then a Sith, and the most feared man in the galaxy. But in his final moment, he needs no power, no armor, and no title. He only wants to see his son with his own eyes. Vader's death isn't the most spectacular on this list. It isn't the most brutal or even the most surprising. But it retroactively transforms every scene of his story. The monster disappears, and for a brief moment, the man returns. the one everyone believed was long dead. That's why Vader gets the most legendary death of all Star Wars villains, because the greatest villain death is the moment the greatest villain stops being one,